The next game on our docket is the Giants and the Panthers. The Panthers are visiting MetLife. They are favored by 3. The over-under is 43. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that I am leaning towards taking the over personally. And then I backed it up when I found this weird stat. So the last 2 times that the Giants played the Panthers, the Giants scored 31 points or more in both of them and lost both of them on walk-off field goals in both instances. That kicker is no longer on the Panthers, by the way. That's Graham Gano, who is now on the New York Giants. So, Jake, who do you like in this one?
So with this game, I kind of went back and forth a couple times. I'm not really sure of what to think about the Panthers offense right now, because in their losing streak right now, they're also a -5 in turnovers. And it doesn't look like Sam Darnold is that same quarterback that he was at the beginning of the season. I'm going to reluctantly end up taking the Panthers on this one. Definitely taking the under. Giants just have so many weapons out right now. Their offensive line is hurt. Saquon is out. Doesn't look like Kadarius Toney is going to be able to play. Pay attention to Kenny Golladay. He wasn't seen on the practice field today. Does look like Darius Slayton is going to play. He was limited at practice, so that's typically a good sign if he's limited on a Wednesday. But Giants are just so injured right now. I just don't have a ton of hope for them. So I'm going to take Carolina very reluctantly, and I'm going to take the under on this one. I just don't think it's going to be a good game. Yeah, I just don't. I want to hope. I truly do want to hope for an over. I do think there is a possibility that Sam Darnold can show the Sam Darnold that he was at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to bank on it. Everything's telling me to take the under, but I do have a slight gut feeling that maybe Sam Darnold, especially if you're looking to stream during the bipocalypse and in a deep league, he might maybe be something, but right now I'm not banking on that. It's just a weird gut feeling that I have. But all the safe picks for me are going to be the under in this one, and I'm going to reluctantly take Panthers.
Yeah, I'm not really excited about this game. I mean, in fact, I'm really not excited about week 7 all that much personally. There's a couple of games sprinkled in here, but for this game specifically, I'll take the Panthers. I'll also take the under on the game itself. I believe that the Giants defense has not been showing up recently either. And I just think every time Daniel Jones, I've actually been a believer. I've been impressed with him the first several weeks of the season. But Jake, just as you mentioned, they're just very banged up. I mean, Kadarius Toney looked like he was on like a breakout path heading into last week. He plays 6 snaps, 3 catches for 36 yards. And I was actually very, very excited that I had plugged him into my lineup until he decided to tweak his ankle and make my matchup that much more interesting. So considering that Golladay is 50-50 at best, now you're going to be relying on Slayton to move the offense, Sterling Shepard. God, do I even mention Dante Pettis? Probably, just for the bipocalypse purposes. But I just don't believe that the Giants are going to have enough heading into this game. And the Panthers defense has still been fantastic. They're still number 1 against the run. I think that puts the Giants into a hole where they're forced to pass. And that just seems like a turnover worthy type of game script for them. From a fantasy side, you got Sterling Shepard, though, fire him up. I'm expecting a very good game from Shepard. He consistently gets open. It just seems like a game he's going to have like 7 or 8 receptions for like 80 yards. And if he happens to fall in the end zone, you've got one of the top 12, 15 receivers on the week, especially in a week where so many studs are out. So I like that. I just don't believe the Giants are going to score that many points. And I do believe the Panthers are going to put just enough up just to cover the spread, keep it under. And from the Panthers side, one player I do want to bring up is Robbie Anderson. So Robbie actually hasn't had a very good couple weeks. However, he's averaging almost 11 targets a game during that period. He's been hyper targeted. He had a couple drops last week, which really throw off the actual box score itself. But considering that now we've got CMC on IR and he's not going to be back again for a couple weeks, I just believe that he's going to get targeted. And so from there, it's going to be an ugly game, and the Panthers will just squeak it out.
Yeah, Matt, I hate when players decide to just tweak their ankles. When they're sitting there and they're like, I'm just gonna go tweak my ankle. That always gets me. And Kadarius Toney, you're right, was starting on a breakout path last week, and I think dynasty owners should be really, really excited. I think that right now, if you're sitting in a dynasty league and maybe you are not suffering this bipocalypse, and you've got a team out there that has Kadarius Toney on it, that maybe needs some bye week guys, you might be able to get away with trying to sneak him away as part of a deal. I would definitely look for that. But I'm gonna agree with you guys on this game. I'm gonna take the Panthers. I think that we saw what happens when this Panthers defense is exposed to bad offenses. And that was the first half of the season. Before the Panthers played Dallas, we were looking at this like, oh, wow, are the Panthers going to be that defense this year? Are they going to be that defense that just you can play them every week against anybody? And we found out very quickly against Dallas, no, that's not the case. But that's not to take away from the fact that they've played exceptional this year. I think the Panthers are going to do a really good job on the defensive side of the ball like they've done all year. And I think, to answer your question from earlier, Jake, about what's going on with Sam Darnold. I mean, I really do think it's as simple as Christian McCaffrey. I think this offense operates so much as, hey, Sam, your safety blanket is Christian McCaffrey. You don't have to force the ball downfield. If you don't want to, you can drop it off to him and you can live to see another play. And unfortunately, without Christian McCaffrey, we've seen what happens when Sam tries to do too much. Now, it's funny. I have the under in this game, but I'm going to agree. If you needed somebody to stream this week, if you were in a 12 team and maybe you were a little late to the waivers, maybe you were, a little drunk last night and you didn't put in your pickups or something like that, and you needed to play Sam Darnold, I think the one thing that we've seen while Christian McCaffrey has been out is Sam's relying on his legs a lot more. And we all know if you get 40, 50 yards and a rushing touchdown, you're usually doing okay. That's usually fine from a quarterback. You add in, 180, 200 passing yards, maybe a passing TD, and you get a very serviceable game. I could see Sam doing that this week. I could see him, running one in the goal line type situation. And I just think the Giants side of the ball is so hurt. I think they're so hurt, and this is going to be a tough team to watch as long as Saquon Barkley's out. And I think that they're gonna fall victim again to kind of that whole Daniel Jones trying to do too much, making some mistakes type of situation. So that's all I got.
One last point on this end, Mike. You might have these reports pulled up. Is Stephon Gilmore on track to play this week?
So he was still marked as out on the injury report, but he did have a limited practice on Wednesday. So could be trending towards playing. At least now he's eligible, at least.
Gotcha.
And then also I did want to mention, just to kind of tie into your Robbie Anderson point, Matt, Terrence Marshall Jr., he's dealing with a concussion, so that's more targets that could go Robbie Anderson's way. Brandon Zylstra is another wide receiver that Sam Darnold was leaning on early in the season. He was catching some touchdowns, and he's been placed on IR. So less and less options competition-wise for Robbie Anderson. So he definitely could be a solid pickup.
So you're saying DJ Moore is about to go off. I love
it. About to get more.
Okay, we need to move on to the next game after
Rough. All right. Thank you for listening to this little highlight of the 2 Minute Drill podcast. If you want to follow along to other games, here's a playlist for you. If you want to listen to the show in its entirety, show links are in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.